I am Moot, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a planeswalker not entitled to the cards in their deck? No, says the man at Wizards. It belongs to the shareholders. No, says the collector. It belongs in a case. No, says the combo player. They belong in exile. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the thrill of shuffling up. I chose Foundation. A place where brewers aren't afraid of jank, where even a 2-mana creature can become a legend, where the greatest decks are forged by the boldest ideas. And with the luck of your draw, Foundations can become your playground as well.
What's up, Planeswalkers? How you doing? How you doing? Welcome to Foundations, and today we're starting things off strong. We're looking at Niv-Mizzet VIsionary, a Izzet and 4 colorless dragon wizard that says you have no maximum hand size, and whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. So a very powerful draw engine on a decently sized body. Now my non-creatives out there would instantly go a burn direction with this commander, and they'd probably be right for it. But we do things differently here. I took this Niv in a direction that I don't think anyone's covered yet. You see, today's deck is like a spider. We're going to spin our web for the first few turns of the game using some cheap removal and counters to buy us time, and your opponents are going to think your hand is dog water because of the lack of threats. But that's what we want, because our strategy is to try and win in a singular turn. Now, there are a number of ways our decks can do that, but one of the main ones is resolving our commander and one of his brothers like Niv-Mizzet VIsionary, since they combined can draw us our deck and possibly kill 2 players. And once we have our deck in hand, we can win from there. Now, before I introduce Spider Niv, I need to talk about the budget. Today's deck can be pricey to some, so feel free to change cards to your budget level, and that works both ways, as I didn't include any free counter spells, so there is some room for some upgrades. Now let's talk cards. So the first thing we need to talk about is our interaction, because without it, we're going to get run over or lose to an early combo. To start things off, we had Rapid Hibernization, since it's 1 mana to remove a creature. Red Elemental Blast is a cheap way to stop interaction on our own stuff or to get rid of some annoying blue cards. Swan Song can be another cheap counter. Muddle the Mixture, which most of the time we'll be using this card to find our Isochron Scepter, but in a pinch it can still work as a counter as well. Narset's Reversal is similar to Muddle in the sense that we don't want to snap it off lightly, however it is a way for us to delay something really bad. Ideally though, we're saving this for our infinite combo later. Chaos Warp for problem permanents. Prismari Command is still surprisingly good in most of my games. We can get rid of an artifact or small mana dork if needed, and if not, we can ramp and then reshape our hand. Submerge has to be one of my favorite blue removal spells. Now naturally, if no one is playing green at your table, it can be quite bad, but for me, that hasn't happened yet. Green is just that popular. Flood of Tears is some mass bounce that we can combo off of if we have an Omniscience, and Blasphemous Act is our one and only board wipe, but it's a good one. And we're not too concerned about big board states later, as we'll win without the need for combat. Counterbalance is our deck's replacement for one of the free counter spells, since we can just use this for free instead. We do have a lot of ways to look at the top of our library, so this card does end up being pretty decent in our deck. That said though, if you have a free counter spell like one of the Forces or a Deflecting Swat, it is perfect to just put that in here instead of Counterbalance. Lightning Greaves can protect our commander, the haste not being too relevant this time since combat damage doesn't draw us cards. To finish things off, we have Propaganda to buy us a little more time versus some go wide strategies. Okay, card advantage, because like any good combo deck, we're going to need to actually draw our combo. Starting off, we have some cards that do damage to our opponents. Now these cards don't actually draw cards unless our commander is out, but they're in the deck for that exact reason. So we have Bolt Wave, Galvanic Blast, and Lightning Bolt that double as 1 mana spells with our commander to draw cards, or game finishers with our 1000-Year Storm combo. Then Flame Rift and Grape Shot for more draw, or again a finisher. Now for cards that don't need our commander, we have Brainstorm because it's cheap, Frantic Search, which also like the cards earlier play nice with our 1000-Year Storm, Big Score for some extra ramp and draw, and Paradoxical Outcome is more card draw that can help us once we have our Omniscience or Infinite Mana out. Jazika's Will, along with our commander, can win us the game depending on the amount of mana we make and what's in exile. Of course, that might be wishful thinking. The One Ring can draw us an absolutely crazy amount of cards, and the protection for a turn can be critical, especially if we need just one more go around before we can combo off. Artist Talent just goes well with our deck, but we're mainly playing it for its looting effect and the discount it later provides. And then for a Planeswalker, we have Narset, Parter of Veils, mainly in our deck to keep the other decks in check with the amount of cards they draw. However, we should rarely mess with this card. Fabricate, Word of Invention, and Solve the Equation can help us find combo pieces. Now, this isn't the end of the card draw in our deck, but the other cards in our deck are more combo focused, so I'm basically talking about the other Niv-Mizzets, which technically draw a lot of cards as well. Before I go over the combo cards, we do need to talk about the ramp of our deck, as we'll need lots of mana early if we're going to play the top end. To summarize, the cards I'm about to go over, they're all mana rocks with a few that give some extra value. Lotus Petal, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Fel Warstone, Fire Diamond, Sky Diamond, Izzet Signet, Talisman of Creativity, Thought Vessel, Commander Sphere, Midnight Clock, Fire Mind Vessel, and lastly, Sculpting Steel, which isn't a mana rock, but it didn't really go anywhere else, so I'm putting it in this category. Now for our non-mana rock ramp, we have Simian Spirit Guide, which we're playing because one of the combos puts our deck in our hands, so we might need a way to get some free mana just for an activation of an Isochron Scepter or who knows what. Galazeth Prismari to make our treasures a more permanent form of ramp. Of course, that is only for our spells, but still good enough. Descent into Avernus, which plays nice with our commander for some extra cards, and we're running Strike It Rich to go with the 1,000-Year Storm. Mana Geyser for one of those explosive win out of nowhere turns. Okay, time to talk combo, which is going to be a lot, but don't get too overwhelmed as I'll be showing you one of the more complicated ones at the end of the video. So we have Sensei's Divining Top, which we can use early to filter our draw, and then with help from Mystic Forge, Fortune Teller's Talent, or the Reality Chip, we can put it on top of our library and then play it again. Of course, that is going to require some mana, so we're playing Birgi, God of Storytelling, to allow us to do that, and we have the Isochron Scepter and Dramatic Reversal combo to fall on if Birgi dies. Now that we can draw our deck and nearly infinitely cast Sensei's Top, let's talk about how we're going to kill the table. We have Firebrand Archer, Kessig Flame Breather, Fire Spitter Whelp, and Glaring Flesh Raker as our way to ping the table to death while casting the top. It's worth mentioning, of course, that all the cards I just mentioned work with other parts of our deck and don't solely rely on each other to be useful. Another way for us to draw our deck involves Niv-Mizzet Parun and Niv-Mizzet the Firemind, which work with our commander, as we ping someone whenever we draw a card, which then makes us draw again off of our commander. Once we have our deck in hand, we can end things by using Laboratory Maniac and simply trying to draw again, or we could use the Isochron Scepter from earlier to make infinite mana and then play our 1,000-Year Storm. Now, 1,000-Year Storm works with any of our damage spells, we just have to play Narset's Reversal to keep putting the spells back into our hand. Omniscience is in our deck to remove the need for mana, and it works nicely with our Flood of Tears. Just remember though, it only makes spells in our hand free, not the top of our library. For the mana base, follow your budget, but feel free to copy the mana base I'm using as it's nearly perfect. My recommended land for this deck is Urza's Saga, as it can tutor out the Sensei's Top for all our combos. For the combo section, we're talking about the Sensei's Top combo in more detail. So for this example, we'll need Sensei's Top, Firebrand Archer, and Fortune Teller's Talent. We'll need all these cards on the battlefield. Once we have the Fortune Teller's Talent fully leveled up, we can then proceed to win the game. Now, Fortune Teller's Talent does say you have to play a spell in order for you to start playing from the top of your library, but let me give you a piece of advice. Don't play out all your combo pieces a turn before you go off. So assume we've played the Sensei's Top this turn, as that won't matter. So we start things off by tapping the top and drawing a card. This will also put the Sensei's Top on top of your library, but thanks to Fortune Teller's Talent, it's free for us to cast it again. We'll then cast it from the top of our library for free, and triggering Firebrand Archer, pinging the whole table. We can then repeat this process to kill everyone at the table and draw our deck. Now, it's worth mentioning if by some miracle a player managed to get an insane life total or cast Teferi's Protection, as long as our free mana and Laboratory Maniac are still in our deck when we draw it, then we can win the game without damage. That's going to be all for today's deck list, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's definitely out of the norm, but I wanted to do something different with this commander. Let me know how I did or what you changed in the deck in the comments below. Subscribe to see more Magic content in the future, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.